Hello and welcome. You're watching Best of the Bets. My name's Christina Nicolaides, where we look at all of this weekend's sporting action, specifically focusing on football. And as usual, I'm not on my own. I have Gareth Walker with me, who is our Heaven Bets bookie extraordinaire, quite a title there, and Sam Dymond, who is our editor of Best of the Bets. We've got a lot of games to get through, gentlemen, as usual. Saturday's fixtures, we've got Newcastle versus Manchester City, Manchester United versus Sunderland, QPR versus Fulham, Norwich versus Wigan, Liverpool versus Aston Villa, and Stoke versus Everton. So starting with Christina 1, Mike 0. Manchester United won the derby, of course.
Did they? When was that? What's that?
What game was that?
I was watching Everton-Tottenham on Sunday. Was there another game? Oh, okay.
Manchester City, of course, they're up at St James's Park at in the early kick-off on Saturday. Newcastle versus Manchester City. Pressure on both teams to perform. Pressure on both teams. Well, more so, I think, on Newcastle to get 3 points at home.
There is pressure on both teams. Funnily enough, there was pressure on both teams going into this game at the end of April last season. But it was very different pressure. Man City had just gone top after winning the derby. Newcastle were chasing a Champions League spot. But this time around, it's all very different. Man City really, need points now to keep pace with Manchester United. And Newcastle, well, free fall really, isn't it? 5 defeats in the last 6. I saw him on Monday night at Fulham, and there was a real lack of composure there from Alan Pardew's side. And for the first time, there's really pressure on him as a manager.
Yeah, prices on Saturday. Newcastle are 5.3. The draw is 3.9, and Manchester City favourites at 1.6. So City do have a point to prove. United are strong favourites for the title now. So City will go to St James's Park, really looking for a win that'll really remind everyone that they are genuine title contenders this season.
I mean, there's no doubt about Manchester City and the talents there. But I also think there's talent there at Newcastle. I think one thing that Newcastle have been affected by is the Europa League.
Fantastic season they had. The fact that game against City last year, Newcastle were still in with a shout of getting into the Champions League. And of course, as you say, they got into the Europa League.
And they beat Manchester United 3-0
Oh, they did.
home.
But one of the things about Newcastle last year, and it's continued on this season, they've got a very high goals to chances ratio. So they're converting a very high proportion of the chances. They get more than any other team in England. So you can look at that 2 ways. One, you could say, well, they've got some real talent, and they have Cisse, Bar, Ben Arthur, absolutely superb players. Yeah. So you could look at it, well, they're going to score goals.
Denver Bar's on 10 already.
And they don't need as many chances as the teams. Or, and I'm afraid for Newcastle fans, this is more the way I look at it, that they overachieved last year on the strength of that. They're not creating enough. And really, it's more over their shoulder at the relegation zone that they'll be looking. 12 to be relegated.
I think it's very interesting what Gareth says there about Newcastle creating little, because obviously when Papi Cisse came in January last season, he was on absolute fire. Yeah. He's not this season, and to be honest, I've seen him have some poor games for Newcastle. And there's a lot of responsibility on Demba Ba. As you say, he scored 10 goals, doing brilliantly. But without Cisse alongside him, converting, they are struggling.
Prediction from you, Sam?
I think it'll be a very nervy game, but I expect Man City to come good eventually. I think they're going to run out 2-0 winners.
2-0.
I like the draw half-time, City full-time. I think Newcastle could maybe keep it fairly tight in the first half, but I think City's extra class will tell in the second half. It's 4.5 available for it to be a draw at half-time and City to win at full-time. And also, Heaven Bet, we've got a fantastic offer this Saturday. This applies to any of the Premier League games that are on over the weekend. Yeah. If you place a correct score bet or a first goal scorer or last goal scorer bet, we will refund any losing bet if there is a penalty awarded in that game. There's been a lot of rather controversial penalties awarded in recent weeks, and so we thought it'd be a good offer. Penalty payback, we're calling it. Basically, if there's
we'll talk about Arsenal later.
Yes, penalty payback, yes. Very apt for them. But yeah, that applies for any game this weekend.
I'm actually going to go Newcastle 2, Manchester City 1, so that's my prediction, 2-1.
2-1, which is 13.5.
Thank you very much.
Another big price you're going for there. Keeping faith in the boys.
Remember, you can place your bets on www.heavenbet.com. We're going now to Mike Holden to find out what he thinks about the early kick-off this Saturday.
I do think City will win the game, but I wouldn't be so confident to back them at odds on. What I would say is if you're thinking of backing City, back them to win well. Because I don't think it's the sort of game where a 1-0 or a 2-1's really going to satisfy the players. I think if that hunger's there and that desire to put things right and to get the title bid back on track, I think they're going to want to win comfortably by at least a couple of goals. And so I think the handicap markets are the way to play, whether it's Asian handicap or standard match handicap, at fancy odds against prices.
OK, so what do we think about what Mike said regarding the game?
Some interesting thoughts there. City 2-0 is 7.5. City 3-0, which perhaps he was more angling towards 19, or 3-1 is 27.5.
He doesn't agree with my 2-1, does he?
No, he's definitely going for City again there. He also mentioned about handicap betting. Now, there's two different types of handicap betting. The English sort of traditional betting with the handicap is just where one team gets a goal head start. So in this case, Newcastle get the goal head start. So you can back City -1, so they basically need to win by 2 goals or more. That's 2.6, so I think he definitely preferred that than taking the 1.6 on offer about Manchester City.
OK. We'll see what happens, whether it is Christina 2, Mike 0, and I hope so. But looking,
I don't think so.
Continuing on, well, we'll see, won't we? It's a results business.
We will see, yes.
Man United versus Sunderland. Man United, of course, off the back of winning the derby. An additional boost this weekend, although it's not 100% certain, but Nemandovic, it looks like he'll be back to captain the team.
Yeah, shoring up the defence would be perhaps an area where they'd be most looking for improvement. So, yeah, that's great news for United. The prices for this game, Man U, shortest price of the weekend in England at 1.2, 6.75 for the draw. And Sunderland 15, which looks a big price, but it's a reflection of where they are. There was some very.
Stephen Fletcher's back from injury. Danny Rose had a fantastic game.
There are a couple of positive signs, but I'm not overly convinced about exactly the way they're being led at the moment. O'Neill said last week, not only is he the best man for the job, he is in fact actually the only man for the job.
I'd agree with that.
Well, I mean, Sunderland have got the right man. That's the man that they want in charge. They desperately want him to do well. I'm just not convinced about the tactics are right. They seem to have no rotation policy. It's the same 11 going out there, so it's not like they've got a potential improvement to come in the new year. They've got some very tough fixtures coming up, and they seem very over-reliant on set pieces as well. It's maybe a bit harsh to be critical of Sunderland ahead of probably the hardest game of the season.
Yeah.
They can be organised enough. A bet I like here is the draw at half-time, United full-time. At 4.2, because I think Sunderland maybe could keep it tight early on, but I think United's class will tell.
Yeah.
Sunderland's record against Manchester United in recent years is nothing short of woeful.
Yeah.
And they've been to United with better teams, certainly more confident teams. So it's really hard to see them getting a result. They haven't beaten Manchester United in the last 20 meetings in the Premier League, and they haven't actually scored in the last 5 between the clubs. So.
Prediction?
Well, it's often quite hard to find value when Manchester United are at home to strugglers. So I think this week, small stakes on a speculative scoreline is the way to go. So I'm going to go for Manchester United 3, Sunderland 0.
I'd agree with you on that
3-0 is 6.7. I should acknowledge Sunderland did have a win in the week against Reading. So that will give them some confidence, but the big question there is what did they beat?
It still is Manchester United, that they're facing.
Yeah, absolutely. 4-0's 9.5, 5-0's 14, 4-1 11.5, 5-1 15. Those are the sort of bets I'd be looking. I'm afraid in terms of Sunderland fans not being very happy with me, but that's how I see it this weekend.
I'd agree with that though. QPR versus Fulham.
Well,
where do we start?
Well, we start by saying that this show very nearly didn't go ahead after I suggested to Sam earlier in the week that this was a relegation 6-pointer.
We are sitting further apart this week,
yeah,
purely on the basis.
Yes, I'm happy about that.
No, it was a ridiculous comment he made. I think he did it just to wind me up.
And succeeded. QPR 2.35, the draw's 3.4, and Fulham a 2.95 for this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough game for both sides. It's going to be a very intense West London derby. But the fact that they know they have to win is going to add a lot of pressure onto QPR, and whether they can overcome that and come out on top remains to be seen. I would suggest not, but then maybe I'm a little bit biased.
No, I'd agree with you. I think Fulham will have the edge. Gareth?
I think Fulham have got the class act on the pitch in Dimitar Berbatov. He's 6.5 to get the first goal. I like Fulham to win 2-1 actually, which is 9.2.
If QPR are to win this game, they're going to have to do something that they haven't done since 1983, and that's score a goal against Fulham. 6 meetings since, they haven't found the net once. They were beaten 6-0, 1-0 last season. I don't think Fulham will have it all their own way on Saturday, as much as I would like. And I can see this one ending up as a draw.
Well, we'll see what happens. Remember, for you to place your bets, it's www.heavenbets.com. Moving on to the next game, Norwich versus Wigan.
Well, the good people of Norfolk would be very unhappy with me if I was to suggest this would be a relegation 6-pointer. Norwich are 2.2, Wigan 3.3, and the draws 3.4. Norwich are flying. Yes, they've done really well. A little blip in the week that they lost the Capital Cup quarter-final at home to Aston Villa. They'll be disappointed with that. But yeah, in the league, absolutely flying. I think that's 9 now unbeaten that they've had. They'll be delighted to have Wigan in town. Wigan, who are a 2.5 to be relegated, they've dropped into the relegation zone for the first time this season. That's true, but they have so much experience about falling into relegation and then at the end of the season kind of finding their way out, finding their form. Yeah, they don't have to start playing well till April, so I'm sure that Roberto Martinez is not going to be feeling the heat. As long as they've got Arsenal, Manchester United, they'll be fine. Yeah, it's Norwich's best run in the top flight since 1989. If they avoid defeat on Saturday, it'll be 10 games unbeaten. It will equal that record. Prediction. They've won their last 4 at Carrow Road, all by 1 goal margin. I don't think it'll be that tight around. I'm going to take Norwich by a couple of goals, a 2-0 win. Norwich 2-0 is priced at 9. I did like the look of a speculative Wigan win. 3-1 is 20, 2-1 is 10, but I'm going to go for 1-1, 6.7. Stoke versus Everton. Michael Owen's going to make his first start of the season. Both of these teams have drawn half of their games this season, which is more than any other club in the league. Stoke notoriously hard to beat, despite the criticism they do come in for. It's hard to go to the Britannia Stadium for any team. Yeah. We really like Everton. Nothing's changed there, and I think this is going to go the same way, go to form. It's going to be a draw. Yeah, Stoke are 3.1 to win, Everton are 2.35, and the draw, it's the shortest priced draw in the Premier League this weekend at 3.25. But if you look at the stats, both teams have drawn half their games. If you believe that pattern's going to be followed, 3.25 is a great price. And Michael Owen, you mentioned, he's 9.6. Just to say, he's 9.6 to score the first goal. If he does indeed play, that would be a good bet. I favour Everton. I do like Everton. Fully respect Stoke. I think Pulis is doing a fantastic job there. Very difficult to beat. Not many teams will go to Stoke and win, but I think Everton will be an exception. 2-1 is 8.6. I like that. OK, Liverpool versus Aston Villa. Liverpool are short, 1.35 to win at home, 4.7 for the draw, and an improving Aston Villa, a 9. They had a great win at Norwich in the Cup in midweek, so they'll be full of confidence. I think Liverpool will win. I think that they'll be too good. 2-0 to Liverpool is priced at 6, and I think that's a solid bet. Yeah, I think it's we shouldn't forget as the year comes to an end that Liverpool have been woeful at home at times this year. I think Paul Lambert is starting to get it right at Villa. They're on a good run of form in the league. Great result in midweek. Very hard to break down. I can see this ending goalless. Goalless, 12.5. And again, a reminder that this game, as with every other, qualifies for our penalty payback concession. If you have a losing correct score, or first or last goal scorer bet, if there is a penalty awarded in that game, then we will give you your money back. OK, best bet for Saturday, Sam? I'm all about the very competitive game at the Britannia Stadium. I don't think Stoke or Everton will be able to overcome each other. I see that one ending as a draw, 3.3. Gareth? Same game for me, but I'm going to keep faith with Everton. They left it late last week, but they delivered in the end, and 2.35 for a team that I really, really like is a great price. I like Everton to win that game as well. But my best bet for Saturday is going to be a Newcastle win. Newcastle win opposing Man City, 5.3 for that. I like that. Thank you very much. We're going to go to a break now, but join me after the break when we look at Sunday's games and the European action. See you then.
Heavenbet.com, a new betting site from Poker Heaven.